Hello, everyone, and on behalf of the Department of English at The Ohio State University, thank you for joining us for this panel on the publishing industry. I'm Dr. Katie Stanitz, the undergraduate program manager in the Department of English and the moderator for this panel. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome senior leadership from Highlights for Children magazine and Zaner-Bloser, a highlights company that creates tools and resources for educators. Highlights is a classic children's publication that has been in print for over 75 years and has entertained and educated children ever since. Like many of you, I'm sure, I have really fond recollections of poring over the activities in it, learning from Gallant and Goofus, and finding its hidden pictures. And so our panelists were so kind to send some copies of the magazine to us. And today I just had a blast revisiting these memories and like finding myself like wanting to do the puzzles and everything like that. And so I will say this really is for kind of all ages. And so if you haven't already, please pick up a copy. You can get one at our front desk of the English department in 421 Denny Hall. And so you can flip through it yourselves too. So thank you again for sending us highlights. So given my fondness for this publication then and now, I'm just so excited to learn more about the behind the scenes work that makes highlights happen. So many factors and so many roles, even like beyond editorial roles, go into making highlights what it is. And we're in luck because our panelists this evening will discuss many different facets of the publishing industry. We have Kent Johnson, the CEO of Highlights for Children, Inc., to give us an overview of the company and other things. And we have Katie Ronstad, who's the Senior Director of Learning Design at Zaner-Bloser. Mary Alice Moore, the Executive Vice President of Product Development and Strategy. And Judy Burke, the editor of Highlights. And so I will give brief biographies of each of these speakers before I turn it over to them. So Judy Burke is the editor of Highlights, overseeing the day-to-day management of the magazine and its editorial team. Over her 27 years at Highlights, she has edited fiction, nonfiction, and activities, and has written well-loved features such as Goofus and Gallant, which is one of my personal favorites. She has seen the magazine through a recent redesign and has overseen the launch of numerous new features. In addition to her magazine duties, Judy has headed up the reader mail division at Highlights, which responds to thousands of letters and emails from children every year. She's also served as the editor of HighlightsForKids.com, worked closely with licensing partners on Highlights branded products, and edited books for the Highlights book division. Over the years, she's spoken at numerous writers' workshops and conferences throughout the US. Katie Ronstad is the Senior Director of Learning Design at Zaner-Bloser, a Highlights company, where she leads curriculum design efforts and informs product strategy across ZB's portfolio of solutions in the areas of supplemental literacy, language, STEAM, cell, and core reading. Katie has nearly 20 years of experience within the field of education, and she has an EDM degree from Harvard University's Graduate School of Education in Mind, Brain, and Education, as well as a Bachelor in Classics from the University of Texas in Austin, along with numerous other certifications. Kent S. Johnson is the Chief Executive Officer of Highlights for Children and is a member of the corporation's board of directors. He's the great-grandson of the company's founders, Gary and Caroline Myers, who began Highlights in 1946. He also serves on the board of directors for Schurz Communications, the Research Institute at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and Momentum Excellence. He is also a member of the Young Presidents Organization. Johnson received his bachelor's degree from Amherst College and his doctorate in physics from Harvard University. And prior to joining Highlights, he served in various roles in research and development, manufacturing, and operations in the biotech industry. Mary Alice Moore is the Executive Vice President for Product Development and Strategy, and she has spent her entire career creating and curating experiences for children, most of it working in children's publishing companies before joining Highlights in 2009. Early in her career, she was lucky enough to land the dream job of managing a children's bookstore, which really is, again, an absolute dream job. Later, she worked as the child care director for a large community agency, and these experiences have shaped her passion for connecting great kids with great experiences and her belief that fun and learning should always be intertwined. She's a graduate of Georgetown University, where she studied Spanish and linguistics. So as I said, I am just filled with gratitude to these distinguished and experienced experienced publishing professionals for taking time out of their busy schedules to teach us about their work. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Let's jump right in. You can hear from the introductions, I'm the strange one as the physics major, but I'm a huge proponent of language arts, and I'm so excited that we're here talking to our colleagues, our neighbors at The Ohio State University. Katie, let's go to the next one. You heard our intros. Let's go to the next one. So depending on your age, you might remember different versions of our cover. Like, this is great in a diverse group of from all the way back from people who were around in the 40s and 50s through. You can sort of pick your age by what you identify with, and you can see the evolution. Let's jump to the next slide. So as Katie mentioned, this company was started by my great-grandparents in 1946. There you see a cover of our very first issue. The tagline from day one was fun with a purpose. Our philosophy is integrating fun and learning together in an engaging, compelling way for children. Trying not really to create a magazine, but create through magazines and other products experiences for kids. We've been around a long time. We've been big. The team that you will hear from today, our teams have done an incredible job creating compelling content. That leads to 80% brand awareness. We've distributed more than 1.4 billion magazines, which is a lot of trees sent through the mail. Important for you to know, and you heard some of it in the introduction, we're much more than magazines. We have a retail division. We do incredible books, puzzles, hidden pictures all across the globe in 20+ languages, digital apps, digital engaging experiences, subscription clubs to get ready for preschool or explore the States or do puzzles in your free time. We've been a mission-driven, purpose-driven company right from the start. Before the people were talking social impact and ESG, we are a company that was created for children. We talk about our vision for the world as we're trying to build a more optimistic and empathetic world by helping children become their best selves, by helping children become creative, caring, curious, and confident. So we think we're broadly a diversified educational publisher focusing on the whole child in terms of education. One of the things, let's jump to the next slide. One of the things when you're big and old and willing to take risks, we got approached by an independent filmmaker who said, can I just have all access to your team for as long as I want? I want to make a documentary filmmaker because I don't understand why kids still love magazines. As the child in my life, their highlights came, they dropped their iPad on the table, picked up the magazine and walked out. I don't understand how what happened. I want to come learn. So some of the people on this call got to spend 9 months with a team coming in and sticking cameras in their face. And we're going to show you the trailer just so you can have a feel of the look, the feel of the movie, but also where Judy and Mary Alice work in Honesdale, Pennsylvania. It is available on YouTube now. It was on Netflix for a while, but no longer. So it is like the perfect, it's not drama, it's the perfect treatise to the editorial process. There's a little bit of drama. Let's roll the clip. Didn't get sound. Do we know if anyone's getting sound?
Totally out of money. At that point, my father rolled out this program to put highlights into doctors and dentist offices. That really made highlights take off.
Every issue is a journey. Each feature contains a million tiny decisions.
It's 44 pages. That's not a whole lot every month.
The cover, it was almost like the perfect storm of things. All that coming together, it's going to be tough.
Does it look great in the end?
We often talk about childhood as being a short, sweet season. Developmental compression is the phenomenon of kids growing older faster. They're certainly more sophisticated.
There's a slow decline in print subscriptions. We're losing kids a little bit younger than we used to lose them.
What would Highlights Magazine be if it were an app?
As nice it is to hold a book in your hands, it's going away. This is the time to move into that digital age.
There is no better time for a child to read highlights. We show how the world could be and should be within the pages of the magazine.
It's crucial for us to include cultural and religious diversity. That's what makes the world interesting. You know, we're not all the same. Dear highlights.
We reply to every letter that we receive from a child.
Dear highlights. Dear highlights. I am supposed to learn it in my. That was enough calls.
I love my grandparents to sing from. Not love me. Music. My best friend is my best friend anymore. What should I do? Yes, your magazine's wrong.
44 pages, creating highlights.
Okay, so you can't see that on YouTube. I'm sad that you missed that little girl. They asked her, what do you think it was like in 1946 what was the world like in 1946 when that first magazine? And she looked at him and said, black and white? I thought it was fantastic. So you missed that. So you can find the clip or watch the movie. And you have one of the stars and Judy really on the let's jump to the next slide. So the other thing I want to do is just set the stage. So being mission driven for kids in the beginning, you wanted the company wanted to execute a strategy of diversification around mission. So in the second half of our history, starting in the 70s, we built an education group. So we have a curriculum company called Zaner-Bloser and a professional publishing company, Stenhouse Publishers, that publishes books for teachers to get better at their craft, K-12 teachers to get better at their craft. Katie's going to tell you more about what happens in Zaner-Bloser. Zaner-Bloser, 1888, founded here in Columbus, Ohio. As a college of penmanship. So this is your local history if you're on the Ohio State campus. And I will say you saw that piece about the letters and us answering the letters. All of the letters kids have sent us, as well as all of our corporate files, are in the Ohio State University Special Collections Library. So we have a partnership with all of you, and they're researchers interested in lots of things who gain access to look at the evolution of kids' letters over the years since we've been listening and responding to them from the beginning. I have to stop because my greatest pleasure as a CEO of this company is that we have the absolute greatest dream team in content creation in children and education. And you don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from them. Let me hand it over to Mary Alice.
Hi, everyone. Before we get to the kind of fun peek behind the curtain that Katie and Judy are going to offer to you about what the day in the life of an editor looks like, I want to just talk to you a little bit about publishing in general, because I'm assuming most of you are here because you're interested in finding out what it means to work in publishing, what that might look like. And to all of you, I say, yay, come join us. It is a really, really fun career path. It is creative, it is challenging, it is satisfying. You're going to meet super passionate people who really are trying to make the world a better place. And publishing in general is this really interesting mix of art and commerce, creativity and business. So all of that kind of comes together in a really great way. And for a lot of people, I think, when you first think about maybe I want to be in publishing, for a lot of people, it's, well, I love to read, and I'm actually a pretty good writer. So this sounds like something that would work for me. And I would say that those are great career attributes for no matter what you go into. But in publishing, I think also people tend to think that everybody in publishing is an editor, and that all people who go into publishing were originally English majors. And what I want to share with you is, as Katie mentioned, all the other jobs and all the other areas that you can come into publishing and participate in this great process. So we have design and creative folks who are the ones who develop those wonderful covers that you saw talked about in the video, and work with artists and illustrators to create a visual representation. There's what's known as managing editorial, which is grammar and scheduling and creating a house style. There's production, actually working with the printers to get the book or the magazine to press. There's operations, how much inventory do we need and when do we need it, and how do we make it all flow seamlessly. You might be interested in marketing, who are the people who decide how are we going to connect these great ideas with people. That might be social media, that might be an author tour, that might be connecting authors with school visits, it might be working with newspapers and bloggers and PR. There are salespeople who have to go out there on the road and talk with booksellers and get people interested in what it is that you're selling. The first place I ever started in publishing was in licensing. So I was a Spanish major, as you heard Katie say, graduated from Georgetown. And my first job was licensing the books that we published in the United States to publishers overseas. So I would sort of find the right publisher in Spain and in Italy and in France and in Eastern Europe, wherever it would be, Africa, that might be the right publishing partner for a particular product, or it might be licensing the rights to something that you publish for television or for a stuffed animal or a game or what have you. There's all sorts of different ways that you can show up, and there's a lot of legal aspects of publishing where you're talking about copyright and trademark. There's also a high need for financial people who can help make this art and commerce come together in a profitable way. And then ultimately the analytics. What are we doing well? What are we not doing well? How would we do it better? So all of these, it's a very well-rounded approach to thinking about publishing. Editorial is absolutely the what you're going to hear about today, but I would encourage you to think more expansively, because there's lots of ways to show up for publishing, and all of them are exciting. So I'm going to hand it off now to Katie to start to talk to you about what it looks like on a day-to-day
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Mary Alice. So hi, everybody. I am Katie Ronstadt. I'm the Senior Director of Learning Design at Zaner-Bloser. As Kent mentioned, this is the education group. So we are in charge of really building and designing curriculum. Learning design is the term we use, but you may hear it also called curriculum design or content design or curriculum specialists or even instructional design. We really like to use learning design because it really helps to put the student at the center of our work. So I've been in this role or in this space for about 20 years now. I've worked in private, nonprofit, public, family-owned businesses. When I graduated college, I had no idea that this was the space that I was going to go into. I didn't really learn about learning design or curriculum design until my master's work. So you guys are already way ahead of the game in terms of attending this and starting to think about potential career path. And so hopefully I share something that maybe sparks a little intellectual curiosity and some additional conversations. And if I don't, that's okay too. That's just as helpful, I think, for you to know that maybe that's not the right fit or the right angle for me to go down as well. So I, as I mentioned, spent most of my career mostly in technology-based curriculum design, but as Kent mentioned, right now at ZB, we are in literacy, language, social emotional learning, STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, the arts and math. We really get into a lot of fun domains and areas. I started really at the bottom, at an entry-level role, right here as a learning designer. And my trajectory, I really went up kind of this path. So I took kind of a traditional management route, so developing my expertise in learning design and also developing my knowledge as becoming a manager and leader of teams. And to really Mary Alice's point, it allowed me through all of these roles to have incredible insight and collaboration with lots of my colleagues. So being able to talk and engage with digital teams, being on the road sometimes and engaging with sales. So although I've sat squarely in a learning design post, I'm learning and have learned an incredible amount about what my colleagues do. In addition, there's another kind of trajectory that you could take advantage of if you're not interested in kind of the traditional management route. You can go more of a specialist route. And so this is, again, for individual contributors that want to continue to really hone their craft and their expertise in maybe a particular domain or learning instructional pedagogies. So before I dive in and talk a little bit more about what it is exactly we do, I just want to frame up a little bit about how to think about curriculum. So kind of in brief, in the most general sense, curriculum is a course of study, but what it really looks like has really evolved tremendously over the years. So you may have heard of a policy called No Child Left Behind. This was our kind of main law for K-12 general education from 2002 to 2015. And so really before this, I would have pictured curriculum to kind of be teachers up front. She's got that big core book, that big book, and all the kids, they have their books, and day after day, they're going through the pages and just following the big book of curriculum. With No Child Left Behind, it really introduced a new level of accountability and a new level of rigor really at this time. And so with that, you start to see an insurgence of technology coming into the classroom. And so with increased accountability, there was a need for really talking about what's personalized learning. Digital also really helps to bring in incredible data, embedded reports. It allows for us to take on some of that demand that a teacher may be able to not shoulder, and just really be able to talk directly to the student. Also in about 2010, we started to see the introduction of academic standards. So you may have heard of Common Core state standards. So this is another level of really just raising the accountability, raising the rigor. And so it's something that we as learning designers really have to take into account. These standards really clearly state what is a child expected to learn at the end of a certain grade level. And then therefore, what is the teacher and curriculum accountable for? And so what we started to see was kind of this shift from like these big core products to what we call supplemental. And so today's classrooms are really kind of a mashup. You still have this core curriculum, but you'll also see, some digital technology that's helping with language instruction or writing product or a point solution around grammar. So it's a lot more of a mashup. And then what I want to just wrap up on this piece is saying that when No Child Left Behind was replaced by ESSA, Every Student Succeed Act. Okay, and so that's the main policy and law that we have today. And what this act really does is elevate the evidence base that much higher, really raising accountability and standards that much more for curriculum designers and ultimately our educators. So when I talk about what does learning design do, I like to say, well, we are in a translational practice. We help to bridge evidence to practice. And so this is a definition that I really like. Learning design refers to the deliberate choices about what, when, where, and how to teach. Decisions need to be made about the content, structure, timing, strategies, the sequence, and the type of assessments that are used, whether it's print, digital, all that stuff. But most importantly, we have to make sure that what we're designing is grounded in evidence, and that also what we're putting in front of our children to learn is effective. So high level, what does that look like? What do we do? So I like to think about it in kind of two big steps. We have a design plan stage followed by a build stage. In between those two, I have a little green light there. There's usually a stage gate that happens there. So we will work on really doing some of these various activities in the design plan stage. It's concepting, it's ideating, it's gathering customer insights, market insights. What does the market really need? What are our educators calling for? Let's prototype something, start thinking about what it's going to look like and design and test it. And then at that point, that's where we go and we say, we've got this idea, we've got the plan, let's fund it and let's build it. And then we move to that second stage where then we're doing the writing, we're collaborating with our digital colleagues, we're creating all the incredible art. And most importantly, we're testing it all along the way. We're putting it in front of our students, in front of our teachers, constantly getting feedback to make sure that what we've envisioned and how we're translating evidence to practice is exactly hitting the mark for what they need. A little bit about who do we work with in those stages. Again, in the design plan stage, I like to kind of think about this as a strong three-legged stool. Learning design really helps to bring evidence and philosophy. We work closely with a product marketing manager who's going to represent the voice of the customer and what the market needs. Together, then we work with a product manager. And the product manager is really responsible for the final decisions of what is going to go into this product. When we move to the build stage, you can see we're working cross-functionally with a lot of incredible other teams. And I think when I'm saying how do we work, the biggest takeaway is highly, highly collaborative. We are all kind of owning our own functions, and together cross-functionally, that's where the magic happens. Okay, so that was just a little bit of a teaser in terms of learning design. I'm excited to ask or answer any questions that you have. Before I hand it over to my colleague, Judy Burke, I want to just, here's my email. I love mentoring young individuals in their career. Please feel free to reach out to me if this is something that started to, spark a little curiosity. I'm happy to talk with you specifically, individually. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Judy.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you. My name is Judy. I'm the editor of Highlights magazine, and I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to pick up one of the magazines that we sent. If you run out, we can always send more, but we're happy to share with you and show you what we've been working on. So I'm part of the team that creates all of our products for kids, including 4 monthly magazines. We have Hello, which is for ages 0 to 2, High Five, which is for ages 2 to 6, Highlights, which is for ages 6 to 12, and we have a Spanish-English bilingual version of High Five as well. So we also have a website for kids. We create toys, games, clothing, gear, activity kits, and of course, lots and lots of hidden pictures puzzles. And if you did get one of these magazines, you can find the hidden pictures puzzle on page 7. So anyway, if I get boring, you can go ahead and do your hidden pictures puzzle. In a nutshell, my main job is overseeing the creation of Highlights magazine every month and managing the team of editors who help to create that content. From day to day, you'll find me discussing ideas with my team, with our art director, and with freelance writers, planning future issues and themes, making assignments to authors, editing copy, and reviewing sketches, art, and photos. That's all pretty normal publishing business, and I'm more than happy to dive into any other specific questions you have about that in the Q&A if you'd like. So feel free to collect your questions if you wish. But what's unique about working at Highlights is that you'll also find me on a day-to-day basis responding to individual letters from kids. We write back to every child who sends us a Dear Highlights letter. That's the column in the back. It's kind of an advice column for kids. But every kid who writes to us, we write back to them. And we also let kids share advice with each other at the bottom, which is one of my favorite parts because kids have some of the wisest advice that I've ever heard and seen. So I'm writing letters to kids. I might also be considering their drawings, poems, and other creative work for publication. And you might often find me talking to real kids about our content, about what they like and don't like, and about what worries them or what makes them happy in their lives. This connection with kids is a key part of what we do, and it's part of what makes our job fun and challenging. We even consider this kid connection when we're interviewing candidates. As you can guess, when we're recruiting for the magazine editorial team, one of our highest requirements for potential candidates is that they have impeccable editorial skills. I look at cover letters as writing samples. Does it feel like a form letter, or does the candidate talk about highlights or the job in a way that shows that they did their research? Is the letter concise, or does it lose focus and kind of start to ramble on a little bit too long? Is it free of errors and typos? These things are all important. When I review a resume, I look for a strong GPA, classes, internships, and activities that are relevant to writing, editing, and publishing, strong tech and interpersonal skills, and of course, consistency and accuracy within the resume itself. But there's something else that's required, which is where the true magic lies for us. And that's the kid connection I talked about earlier. Because we're creating products for kids, we have to be able to connect with kids, who they are, where they're at in their lives, and what's important to them. In our job descriptions for magazine editorial positions, we ask for, quote, a demonstrated interest in children and publishing. When I'm interviewing candidates, I often will ask questions like, have you ever worked at a summer camp for kids? Did you babysit as a teenager? Have you spent a lot of time helping to care for younger siblings or cousins? When is the last time you read a story to a child? These things usually do not show up on resumes, but that's where I can see how passionate someone is about kids and how well they're likely to know what will interest and excite a child, what will delight them and make them laugh, and what will make them feel valued and understood and important and empowered, because that's how we create products that will resonate with kids. Our current editorial assistant, whom we hired last year, she's phenomenal, had an outstanding cover letter and resume, which are the main reasons we decided to interview her. But then during the interview, I also learned that she had the following experience with kids. For 3 summers, she worked as a counselor at a day camp for 5 to 10-year-olds. So that's like exactly Highlight's age. She babysat for relatives since she was 12. And during college, and I love this because I did not do this in college. And I thought, why didn't I do that in college? I would have loved to do this. She tutored elementary school students and oversaw the creation of a newspaper written by kids. Talk about like a perfect way to get ready for working at Highlights, you know? So during our conversation, she clearly demonstrated her respect for kids, her ability to relate to them, and the joy she took in working with them. This kid connection was a big part of why we hired her. Now, in her job at Highlights, she is able to draw from that vast well of knowledge about kids and apply it as she creates content for them. As an editorial team, we are also intentionally adding to that well of knowledge about kids. We do market research as part of our jobs. We look for trends in kids publishing by attending product expos and book fairs, and even by visiting Target and Walmart and Barnes & Noble and other stores to see what kids are buying. I also, sounds cute, you know, we're watching kids. What do they love? What are they migrating to? What are their moms or dads wanting to buy for them? And what are they going to themselves? Like, we want to see, like, where is their heart? Like, what are they attracted to? So, but more importantly than that, we talk to real kids, kids in our lives, kids in schools, and kids at library events and summer programs. We talk to them, we ask them questions, and we share magazine ideas with them. And that's where we learn the most. Those are the moments that stick in our memories, remembering what kids loved or where they struggled while they were testing maybe an activity that we put in front of them, or what made them laugh, which jokes and riddles cracked them up, like which humorous features did we put in front of them they really responded to, and which ones did they kind of go off and like start working on something else. So just paying attention to kids is so important to our job. So the kid connection is an example of something that's important to us at Highlights, in editorial at least, and design. The people who are creating products for kids, that's like a key part of our jobs. But as all of you go through your college career and start to apply for internships and summer jobs or different types of opportunities that you have, I would encourage you to take note of what's important to each company that you're applying to. Ask yourself, what drew you to that company in the first place? What interests do you share with them? And why are you well suited to work there? If you could convey that connection in your cover letter and interviews, then you will make a stronger impression on the hiring manager. Also, I know there's a lot of pressure all throughout college to have these internships and jobs and things like that, especially as you get closer to graduation. I remember worrying not only about getting a job, but also about ending up in a job that I didn't like. I didn't want to be stuck, but I've learned that you're never really stuck. Life is a series of choices, and to a certain extent, it lets you choose your own adventures. I started at Highlights as an intern right out of college, so people often say to me, oh, this is the only job you've ever had. Well, that's not really true. From the time I was 14 until I graduated from college, I worked at 8 different places. Some jobs I loved, and some jobs really left a lot to be desired. But I learned something from each one of them, and that's important. Sometimes I learned something about the work itself, what tasks I liked doing and what I didn't like doing. Sometimes I learned about other people, who could be counted on to pitch in during a busy time, like what it means to be part of a team, and who couldn't. And finally, sometimes I learned things about myself, what I'm good at, whether I like working by myself or with other people or in front of a group of kids, and what types of work bring me joy and satisfaction. All of those experiences, both good and bad, helped me along my path. So my point is, you can learn something from every job, and every job doesn't have to be forever. So don't be afraid that you won't find the be-all, end-all job right out of the gate. You'd be amazed at how one job can lead to another, how people you meet will inspire you to take the next steps in your lives, and how even the same job can change over time. I've been at Highlights for almost 28 years, but I would say that my job description changes by 50% every 3 or 4 years. Besides working on Highlights magazine, I've edited books, I've worked on podcasts, I've planned parties and events, I've headed up our kids' website, I helped develop apps, I served on boards for nonprofits, I tested products for a toy catalog, I worked with licensing and international partners, I've given speeches, I've made lots of balloon animals. We have some events where we have to do that. And I've even participated in that documentary that we talked about earlier. So who would have ever thought And I didn't know how to do any of those things when I started out, and I couldn't have predicted what opportunities I would have. None of us is given a blueprint that shows the paths our careers will take, but maybe that's a good thing. We learn as we go. Each new experience I had grew out of an opportunity that I said yes to, often without knowing very much about it. I trusted that the person offering me the opportunity had confidence that I could do it, or sometimes that I could learn how to do it. People are often afraid to try new things. But remember, something is only new to you once. Learning is a process, sometimes an uncomfortable process, but that discomfort is temporary, and you'll learn quickly if you try. So don't be afraid to dive in when an opportunity is presented to you. Let your default be to say yes. You never know what you'll learn. And learning new things can be thrilling. We all know this. It can also be a little scary and stressful and, to be honest, humbling. You really learn quickly what you don't know, but it can also be exhilarating. So don't underestimate how important that feeling is to helping us feel alive every day. It's just that feeling of exhilaration. I learn something new, even if it's just like learning a new chord on a guitar, like that new bit of knowledge in your, that thing you can do, that thing you tried, or that thing you failed and then finally got it. Like that's so important to us as humans. And of course, that's how we grow. So I would just say, don't be afraid to surprise yourself and to throw yourself into new situations, to say yes. That's where a lot of the fun lies, I think, in life. So if you try something new and you give it time and you still don't like it, you can always move on to something different. Life is a series of choices. So don't be afraid to just choose something new if that's what happens. I like to think that we all have hidden talents waiting to be discovered. And it's up to you to keep giving yourself chances to find out what your hidden talents are. Like maybe we don't all know what all of our talents are right now, but if we keep trying new things, we can discover new hidden talents all the time, So I would say venture out into the world, talk to people, ask questions, try new things, and see what's out there waiting for you. And if you work hard and you keep learning and saying yes and being persistent, that's important too. Someday you just might find yourself in a career you love. That's all I've got. So if anybody has any questions, could open it up to the group.
Thank you all so much. I feel like just what you were saying, like I just feel exhilarated now, like learning all of this. And so like really kind of I feel in practice like what you were just talking about, hearing all of this. So thank you so much. So again, participants, please feel free to use the Q&A button to add questions there. And so we have one question that I'm going to get to in just a second. But first I wanted to ask, what kind of so I think everybody talked about, these different facets and different things that you do. And I think Judy's point about like, there's so many, skills that we develop in ways that we might not anticipate being linked to things we do later on, like ostensibly, but end up being like really important. And so I was wondering if you would all, share what are some of the skills that you attribute to your kind of success in, your current role or in kind of coming up in that? Like, what are some of the skills that you think are really important to what you do now, and like, how did you develop them, if that makes sense?
I think Judy said it really beautifully, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit when she said, don't be afraid to say yes, or say yes as often as you can. I think the number one most important skill in your career is curiosity. Really lean into new thoughts, new ideas, new ways of working, take a risk. But if you are sort of intellectually curious, emotionally curious about what you might learn, what can I learn in this situation? How can I grow? What can I contribute here? It will take you so much farther than any kind of scripted piece of knowledge or a hard skill that you learned, because you can really, if you approach things as a learner, you can go farther faster. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I can add on to that too. I think a growth mindset is very critical in terms of not being fixed of like, oh, I don't know how to do that, so I'm never going to be able to know how to do that. Really flexing that growth mindset of like, I don't know it yet, but I will get there. I think that kind of dovetails with the curiosity piece.
The only thing I know is like everything we do is a team sport.
Yeah.
So emotional intelligence, collaboration, and think about the things you do in your life when you're in that job interview, you're talking to someone, like where have you picked up those skills about how you work well with others? because in the end, we can't see that on your resume, but it is a huge determiner of people's success in organizations, is how well they play in the sandbox together.
Yeah. I can't tell you how much I leverage my like soccer playing experience in my professional career. I'm always just like thinking about leading, you know, bringing the team together, communicating. There's just a lot of tenets that I think you can get from sports or any other kinds of professions too, that you can really leverage in most careers.
Great. Okay, so there are a few questions about the same kind of concept, and so I'm going to ask it in. So there's some questions about internships, and so I'm going to ask it as both. They are students are interested in if you do have internships available, both at Highlights and at Zaner-Bloser. But I will. So I'll ask that part of it too, of just that basic question. But also, I'm interested too in what you would recommend for students who are looking for opportunities generally. And also I think there was one about editing freelance or things like that too. So just general internship or job opportunities, but also I would expand that out to what would you suggest for students who are kind of interested in how to go about looking in this field?
I mean, freelance is an incredible way. I think even though at Zaner-Bloser we have an internal learning design team, we are constantly working with vendors and freelancers, and they have a lot of open roles. And so we've actually worked with a couple freelancers that we were able to kind of coach a little bit too along the way. It allows you to kind of dip your toe into the industry to see, is this the kind of work I do want to do? Do I like this? Who am I working with? What's the collaboration look like? So it helps to kind of get a peek in, and then it also helps you to start to build a little bit of a portfolio too, because we typically ask for some kind of samples, writing samples, editing samples, any kind of instructional design samples as well. So that's a great way to start to kind of build a portfolio too.
Judy, do you want to talk about the internship in your area?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Oh, me or Judy?
Either, both.
Judy, why don't you take it?
Okay, I'll go first. So we don't do any short-term like summer internships at Highlights, but we do often have available a lot of times in June, like a year-long editorial assistantship on our campus where it's paid with benefits, but it's usually lasts for either a year and sometimes they get extended a little bit. And that is a way for us to kind of keep fresh faces coming into our staff, and product development for kids, but it's also a chance for students to kind of enter the world of publishing and learn by helping out all the editors. And the nature of the like our business at Highlights, and what's kind of nice about it is there's usually a lot of different opportunities. Variety is key. And so we have to be comfortable with like wearing a lot of hats, juggling a lot of different things, but at the same time, you're also gaining a lot of experience. So when that opens up, we post it on all the major job sites. But that's where I was talking about earlier about like, I'm looking at those cover letters really critically. I'm looking at resumes, and it's because it's such an important fit. We really weigh heavily, like we put a lot on the shoulders of our editorial assistant. It's not just somebody who's reading just manuscripts that came in out of nowhere. Like we are giving them solid work. Like currently the person that we hired last year that I was telling you about, she is the main liaison for all of the crafts and recipes for both Highlights and High Five. She is organizing all that work. She's doing a lot of testing. She's, doing a lot of communication with our crafters. She's doing a lot of stuff herself, and she's working within our system, and she's the primary editor on those pieces. So of course we're reading behind her, but she has worked up to the point where she's doing so well that she's, we trust her with a lot of editorial responsibility. That's why she needs impeccable editorial skills. She needs great time management skills. She needs to know her stuff, and she needs to be on it, and she is. But it's a big job, but it's also like a really great experience. And it's been interesting over the years to see where people have gone on after they've done like the Highlights editorial assistantship, because it's been really kind of an interesting to get to know lots of different people. And we have a handful of people on campus who are part of our staff, have been hired into it, like myself. That's how I started. It was called an internship back then, but it was still a full year. That's where I was lucky enough to get that. So, but
one
anyway,
of the things that's interesting about editorial, and particularly in the way Judy runs her department, is it's very much an apprentice model. So it isn't, as an assistant, you aren't just sort of doing the scut work that people don't want to do. You are really learning the craft, following in the footsteps of somebody who is teaching you and training you and gradually handing work off to you. So you aren't left to fend for yourself, but you are expected to show up and learn. And it is really truly the apprentice model, more than in a lot of other industries.
yeah, and that's also why we can't just do a summer internship, because our magazine comes out every month. And so we start planning our issues probably like 7 months in advance, right? So the way it works, we have this monthly cycle. And so the first month you're here, you're seeing that monthly cycle for the first time and learning all the tools and all the technology that we use, our electronic publishing system and all the other systems we have. And then the second month, maybe you're doing it yourself a little bit with some help from the person who trained you. And then the third month, maybe you have it, but we don't want you to leave after you finally have it. You know, we want to kind of really let you grow and expand and contribute to our team. Really value the voice of our editorial assistant, you know, because, you know, I'm 50, she's 23. I want to know, like, what is your experience with this? Like, we got to have variety in ages on our team as well, and backgrounds, and, you know, really just kind of, we want to reflect our readers in kind of what we're, you know, who's creating it, you know, what authors and illustrators we're working with, and just kind of have that, we just want to create the best experience possible for kids. And I just feel like it's so important to build the strongest team to be able to do that.
And at ZB, right now, we don't have a current internship program, but this is something that's been very much at top of mind. I'm looking to lean on Judy a little bit to learn about how you started yours. It's how I entered the space as well, was through an internship at CAST, the Center for Applied Special Technology. And so it was very much of an apprentice kind of model. And so it's something that we don't have currently, but I'm hoping to kind of pull something together shortly and soon.
And I would just say, you know, in fairness, with a view of the industry, Scholastic has internships, Penguin Random House has internships. Yeah. You go on the website of the major publishing houses, you will find they have really strong career sections on them that actually describe various opportunities. So there are internships out there, many of them paid, that if you, and I don't know if all of them require residence in New York anymore. I think one of the interesting things for all of us post-COVID is that it has opened up an opportunity to discover even more talent than we ever might have been exposed to before, which has just been thrilling. But I would encourage people to seek out, I mean, really just do your, go look and see the sites of the companies that you're thinking about, because a lot of them are looking for, you know, young, fresh talent from college.
Yes, and I do know that, at least I am pretty sure it's Penguin Random House, they don't require you to be in residence anymore. And so, yeah, and I know that there's some other ones that are pretty similar. And so that's, you know, great opportunities for people. And so thank you for answering that. Actually, just a numbers question, actually. So just how many people work within the editorial section at Highlights? And I'm going to extrapolate that too and ask, like, how many people just generally kind of are in different divisions at Highlights?
So we have close to 500 people, and I don't know where they all are. What do you guys think your sizes of your groups are?
Well, it depends on how, so I'm in charge of product development, which includes editorial. And if you want to go end to end, you know, that in that little word cloud that I created before. So if you're talking about, you know, where it starts with Judy and the you know, editorial development and designers and production people, everybody who's in charge of making the thing or the things that we are doing, including the people, we have a really robust digital asset management system. We have, you know, I should have put that on the slide. We have, you know, which are run by people with masters in library science to really help us keep track of all of the asset archive that we create. I'm going to guess that group end to end is about 40 people for magazines, books, clubs, and then what Judy described before is the activity kits and the apparel and the backpacks, et cetera. And then,
how about you, Katie?
Katie.
Yeah, so on the product team, we have about 50 people. And so this would be my section, learning design, but also the creative, digital teams, product management, project management as well. Within just learning design, about 10 right now. We are growing fiercely though. I mean, I think I've been with the company for about 3 years, and when we started, it was half that amount. So we're growing aggressively.
Great. So, kind of thinking about education, too, because Mary Alice, you mentioned Master in Library Science, and so one person asked, is pursuing a master's degree, so in really, certain fields or any field, or especially I think probably this is different depending on what area you're talking about. Is this something that would give someone an edge, or do you think that it's kind of equal opportunity for people with a bachelor's degree?
Katie, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. It depends. It depends on what the role is that we're looking for. I think historically, so right now I have people on my team that do have a master's degree and some that have a bachelor's degree. It really depends on kind of the area of specialization and the level of the role at times too. I think the masters can give a little bit of an edge in my space because we're really looking at evidence and evidence-based practices and research to really drive some of our instructional design. And so it does help, but it's not necessary. And so I think the other thing too is a lot of time when I put out job descriptions, they can kind of feel pretty extensive. There's a lot of things on there that we may be looking for, but from my perspective, I'm hiring a team too. So if you see a job description and you feel that you're really strong on a handful of things on that job description and maybe developing in some others, apply. Go ahead and apply, because we will take the conversation and have the interview. And I'm thinking about kind of, okay, if you're strong in these 4 areas, then I can shore it up, with these other skill sets, maybe with another role. And so I just wanted to kind of mention that, because I build teams of people that are really complement each other. And so that we're all kind of we all bring a certain acumen together as a team.
And I would say it probably, Katie, you expressed that so well. It probably creates more of an edge in school publishing or academic publishing, where you're really, what Katie showed us and described about really working against a curriculum. In our area, Judy might be way more interested in somebody who's worked for 6 years at a summer camp, and plays the guitar, than somebody who has a master's in comparative lit, say. I mean, I'm being a bit facetious, but I think it sort of depends on what's the kind of role you're looking for, and really understanding, what that job is, or what the company might be looking for and valuing about itself.
Absolutely.
And 10 years down the road, it definitely doesn't matter.
I don't have an advanced degree.
That's true. That's very true.
And what I found a little, so somebody who got a master's degree, like when they're 10 years down the road, if they say, well, I was so passionate about that, I had to get a master's degree, that passion carried through, and they've learned so much more in their time than they ever learned in college or in their master's degree. So I wouldn't pursue too much based on the job. We want people who are passionate about what they're doing. And if your master's degree shows us you were really passionate about something, that helps.
Yeah.
If it shows you stayed an extra year in school, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I liked, Katie, what you said too about kind of thinking about the team and how they're fitting together. And Mary Alice, like what you're really thinking about in a specific role. I was just doing a session, and I always use this ice cream metaphor. Like when you have like your minimum requirements is like the ice cream, and then the kind of other like desired things are like all the toppings and everything like that. And you might be applying, and you might just be a scoop of mint chocolate chip, and someone else might be a big sundae, but the hiring manager might really, really want that mint chocolate chip. And so I was just very excited, because I usually do these weird extended metaphors, and I'm just so excited to share that one, because I feel like it turned out well. So thank you for indulging me.
In the interview process, you could find that you're really vibing with somebody, and they would be a great fit for the team, and they're bringing that growth mindset. They're bringing the curiosity. I mean, and that's half of the battle, really, is that they're willing to learn and willing to engage. And I mean, if you could find that kind of fit, you know, I'm willing to teach too, you know, in the job as well.
Because a lot of the skills are completely teachable, right? Like I
Yeah.
can teach you the mechanics of how to do this job. I can't teach you how to be curious, how to be passionate. I can't, like, if you can show up and really be somebody that I think, wow, you can add value here, I can teach you that stuff, but what you're going to bring, an energy and enthusiasm, a point of view, a perspective, love that.
Yeah.
And I love that too. I think there's so much pressure nowadays for college students. And even, you know, sometimes I think even experienced professionals, that we feel like we have to have everything already done, or like we have to have all of the skills already there. And I love this kind of emphasis on like the growth mindset and the curiosity, and like that being a real asset, because like I always think that's an asset. And so to hear it from, you know, other folks too is just wonderful. So a few more questions. So I think this goes to some other things I was wondering about as well, and kind of thinking about some other answers, is that if a person doesn't have internships or kind of other experience, like what might they, how might that look on an application, or how might they kind of set themselves up? And I'm going to relate that too to Katie. You mentioned writing samples, and kind of like what suggestions might you have for someone who might not have like published writing, or, you know, something like that. Like, so I guess like what would you do with lack of experience, and how can you kind of, I guess, mold that in your application materials?
Yeah, you know, a lot of times we have teachers that are looking to make a jump for a career, and so they may not have, you know, materials that they've designed for a publisher, but they're designing curriculum constantly. And so a lot of times I'm just trying to see something that helps me get at some thinking, like what were you trying to achieve? What was your process in some of this? How did you gather input, you know, to build some of that? I think you could pull anything. I mean, I would be happy to look at any undergraduate work as well, any final papers or projects, because it's just a starting point, I think, for us to have a conversation to talk more about like process and how do you think, and where did you stumble, where did you ask for help, how did you, you know, how did you go about it, really kind of anything to enter.
I was reading an article recently about the death of the cover letter, and it made me sad, because actually we use those to sort of find out something about you that isn't expressed by your GPA, that isn't expressed by where you went to school or what clubs you were president of. And if you can tell a story in your cover letter that gives us a little glimmer into, you know, your sense of humor, how you think, what you're interested in, your passion. I remember writing a cover letter way back when I was first in publishing, after I had run the bookstore, to get a job in publishing, and talking about how much I loved working with the kids or helping a child find a book, just to sort of show that I cared, right? So if you can come up with, and that medium, I find, is a really great way to express yourself. So it makes me sad to think that it's for a lot of jobs it's going away.
I think also like reaching out. I mean, LinkedIn is an incredible tool, and I'm very accessible via LinkedIn. It's occasionally, it's not as much as I would like, you know, but occasionally I have somebody newer in the industry that's like, can you help me? You know, I'm eager. I've been talking to this person and this person. And I'll happily take a look at their resume, how they're presenting themselves, and give them some quick, you know, it's an hour out of my day or something to just give some quick coaching, because you never know, maybe a couple years down the road we come back to each other, and that's part of like building a network too, I think is really key. So talking to people that are in the role, with LinkedIn you could see how people are connected, so finding a way to have a conversation to say, you know, Judy, I was kind of excited about what you were talking about. You have 30 minutes to just have a coffee with me to talk about it some more. And then you get some more of that personalized advice that can really help you present yourself and help you start to build some of the experience to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, and to piggyback on top of that, I was going to say, for your resume, if you don't have internships in the field or anything that looks like, oh, what am I going to put here? I know a lot of students are in clubs where they're working on a school newspaper, or they volunteer at the writing center and tutor other kids, or they work at a library in the community and work with children there, or work on writing programs there. So there's a lot of things you can do where nobody has to kind of hire you to do it, but you joined it yourself, or you took the initiative yourself. So I see that on resumes as well, and I value that equally. So I think that people who are interested in a certain field, it's what you want to do anyway, right? To a certain respect. You don't know what job you're going to get, but you know what you love. And I often will say, like, it's crazy when it's embarrassing when I have a day off. Sometimes when I'm doing my own thing all day long and I'm not at work, I'm doing the same kinds of things that I do at work because that's what I love to do anyway. So I'm embarrassed to admit that, but like, what'd you do all day? I was reading, I was writing, I was fixing this thing, I was fixing the family tree, the genealogy for my cousin who had a million typos in it. Like, this is what I do, you know, so that's part of it, but I'm out with my cousins, I'm out with my neighbors, I'm out with my friends' kids, you know, so it's really like, what are your passions and how are you finding ways to pursue those in your everyday life? And when those kind of dovetail with the field you're looking to enter, if I see that on your resume or in your cover letter or in our conversation, that's really going to connect with me. So I think that it doesn't have to be a hired gig or for pay, you know what I mean, to convey that you're a good fit for one of the jobs here.
I also look for just a commitment to kind of professional learning, you know, so I used to have I have a section now that's like, I've presented at these conferences or I've published these kinds of papers, but before that, before I was kind of at that level, it was, I just attended, you know, these conferences or these free webinars I've been joining, you know, about instructional design or language or literacy, you know, and there's a lot of free professional learning that's going out there. And I think that can be a section on a resume that really starts to be like, wow, they're finished with their coursework and they're still continuing to really dive into this professional learning because they're committed and eager.
We have a question that I think has been answered, but I'll ask it, which is that are most publishing houses looking for like really young, kind of out of college, or can these kind of entry-level positions be for people a little bit older? And it seems to me like what you're saying is absolutely. And I also promise that this is not me asking this question. Because I was reading it and I was like, I was kind of wondering that too. Like,
no, because think of the experience somebody's bringing to that, like a whole life experience, a whole different perspective. It's really just what are you showing up with that where you think you can add value. Absolutely. No, it doesn't, you don't have to be 21.
Yeah, like I said, I hire a lot of teachers. So these are people that have had a career already, you know, for many years. But they bring such an incredible lens and viewpoint. They know the realities of the classroom. They've had to struggle with curriculum before, you know. And while this may be a different kind of job and it would be considered an entry level in a way, because you're learning about publishing and different lingo and different people that you're working with. No, absolutely. It's one of my favorite jumps that I like to support.
And so we have two more questions unless any more come in. But so one, and I think I love that because the trailer kind of addressed it, or like when the filmmaker was saying like, I'm so interested because like, you know, this kid like drops the iPad and grabs the magazine. And so which is just such a wonderful kind of image and idea. And I love that. But how is social media increasing like tech like interest or savviness or perceived tech savviness in children? I don't actually know if they have it, affecting highlights, or how does that kind of shape what you do with the magazine, or does it not? And so I think that's an interesting question.
Well, it's interesting. The history of tech at Highlights, we have been dipping our toe into every experience since AOL in 1996, essentially, right? So that was one of my first tasks as an intern. We had a site on AOL. There was like a kids section. It was such early days that we had no control over who was posting on the site. It was just the way it was set up. And so we had to go on every 15 minutes to make sure nothing inappropriate was being posted. So like from that, we learned, hey, when we build our own website for kids, we want to make sure we have full control over it. We feel like community is important. We want to have kids share with us. But through the years, we did CD-ROMs and activities. We did apps all along the way. We had different digital immersive experiences. And so right now, you know, we have highlightskids.com, and it's a much smaller site than it used to be. We kind of were giving away too much early on, but we still feel like it's an important area for kids to be on. Now, kids can't really be on social media till they're I think 13 because of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So we don't assume that kids are on social media, and we don't engage kids there, but we engage their parents there. We engage the broader community there. We have a brand and social team that works on that. But for kids, one thing we have changed regarding highlights is a lot of the things, because of our long lead time for print, we can't ask kids for something in one issue, get it in, process it, and have it printed in the next issue. I mean, like, what are we, March, we're February 28th, like our May issue has already gone to the printer. It went last week. So like, that's how far ahead we work. So what we do is, there's like a feature in the magazine called Wacky Captions, where you'll have a funny photo, usually of animals, and we will post it on highlightskids.com and ask kids to share their funny captions with us through highlightskids.com. And so we get them through there, and we're able to kind of have the fresh crop published in the magazine on a timely basis because of that. In the same way, the advice from you at the bottom of the page, this is another thing that we posted on highlightskids.com, and we say, how would you answer this problem that this child is having? And so kids post their answers, we review them, and we select a couple for publication. So we work in tandem with the web team to make sure that we're getting content from kids in a timely basis, in a timely manner. So for us, we like to reach them on any level, but we do try to kind of stay in the world, see what kids are into. And we reflect their voices and their interests on one of my favorite new features in the magazine as of 2 years ago is called About You. And the tagline is stuff you love, things you tried, and what you wish other kids knew about you. And so it's a place where kids share personal things about themselves. It's a place where kids kind of share what they're proud of, something that they made or they did. But it's also, you know, greedily from an editorial perspective, it's our window into, we're asking kids, what do you love? What are you into? And they're telling us directly. So yes, we go out into the world. Yes, we talk to kids that we know, kids in schools and on Zoom, but like, this is our readership, 1 million kids saying, hey, I love doing Minecraft, and you wouldn't believe how many, you know, things I built this week. Or like something that's novel to them. I went to a drive-in movie once. I like going to drive-ins because you sit in your car. They're silly, they're funny, they're just like experiences they had. And I want kids to see that and connect with other kids. So for me, like this stuff can come in through the web, or it can come in through postal mail, or through we have like a digital submission form on our kids' site. So they work hand in hand. That's kind of, I think, where we're at right now with it, but we're always looking to see like, what are they into? What's new? Where should we dip our toe in? I mean, Kent and Mary Alice could probably say a little better the thought process that happens behind that. As far as what's worth it.
You captured it perfectly. I mean, you know, kids aren't supposed to be on social media before age 13, so we are not chasing that, but we know that digital experiences are part of every child's life. So we try to show up where kids are. We get a lot of feedback from parents telling us that we're kind of the wonderful alternative, often the print magazine is, to kids who are really saturated with digital experiences. But we are, even as we speak, creating new ways of bringing highlights to life in digital experience form. So we're not against it. We're not like, we love to be evangelists for print, but we feel like a child's diet should be well-rounded with all different kinds of experience in various mediums.
That's wonderful. And if you'll indulge me, just one more brief question. What is your favorite part of your job?
Oh.
Mine's easy. It's honestly, it's doing things like this. Like I love mentoring, and I love helping people in their career path and helping them kind of figure out what are their strengths, their interests, helping to craft that job, that perfect role for them where they're going to just flourish and excel, ultimately allowing for a big impact on kids' lives and teachers' lives.
I'll go last.
Judy, you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably guess right now is hearing from our readers is always has been, and it is still my favorite thing about working at Highlights. I have a document open from the head of Kids Mail. Her name is Chantel, and she was talking about questions that readers sent us in January. And some of them are, how can I get my teacher to like me? How many books should I read in a year? What other things can a person do in the summer for fun that does not involve getting wet? Should I invite my whole class to my birthday party? What is special about a leap year? Should I try to be nice to my little brother's friends who annoy me? How can I wake up in the morning on my own? Why are hotels only made for adults? I won't read them all, but you get the idea. Like, this is kind of what I love. It's just like honest questions. We answer them all. We hear like the greatest stuff from kids. So that's my favorite thing.
For me, it's the magic that comes from the intersection. One of the things I love most about Highlights is it's humor and story and puzzle and learning and activity and engagement. And when it comes together, it's like this just magic moment. And we're about to launch a brand new magazine for the first time in 10 years this spring that is completely devoted to puzzling and gaming and activities. And I'm so excited about this because it is just fresh and fun, and it's thrilling to actually bring something like that, and I can't wait to put it in kids' hands.
You all have seen the best part of my job. It's that I get to interact with, get a little view into the incredibly talented, passionate people that work here. I mean, it's just amazing and humbling to me. The second and to know we're all working together to have a positive impact for children. And as I listened to Judy and thought, oh my gosh, like a couple million kids are being shaped by how she thinks every single month. Like, so I'm an impact junkie, but the number one thing is just the people I get to work with, we get to work with. It's the best part about this job.
Thank you so much. And this is, as a segue out, this is my favorite part of my job, is connecting, is getting to meet people like you and connect our students to wonderful professionals to share their wisdom. And just again, thank you so much on behalf of the Department of English and on behalf of Ohio State. Thank you so much for, being with us tonight and for sharing your time and expertise and wisdom and good humor. And everything with us. So thank you so much. Thank you to the attendees for coming and for your questions and engagement. And so thank you again and have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks, Katie. Bye, everybody.
Bye, thanks all.
Bye.